Order of operations. I have here an expression that Mr. Profit and I both solved. And as you can see, we both got different answers. Mr. Profit did the 3 plus 5 first to get 8, and then multiplied the 8 times 2 to get 16. Well, when I evaluated the same expression, I did the 5 times 2 first and got 10, then I added the 3 to that and got 13. So the question is, who is right? Well, the answer to who is right comes in the order of operations. The order of operations describes the order to use to simplify expressions using more than one operation. So as we study the order of operations, we'll find out exactly who is right, and we will work with a specific order in order to simplify expressions. You remember from when we talked about variables that open sentences or math sentences have an equal sign. Well, an expression does not have an equal sign. So these are expressions. And simplify means to just evaluate or find out how much they are worth. So find out how much what's the value of that expression. So let's look at the steps to discover who's right. Step number 1 in the order of operations is to complete all operations within grouping symbols. And by grouping symbols, I mean parentheses. And we learned when we studied the associative property that parentheses means do this first. If there are grouping symbols within other grouping symbols, do the innermost operation first. So you can see that here. These brackets will also work like parentheses, and I have grouping, I have parentheses inside the brackets. That's going to mean do this first. So let's do 2 examples. In this expression, these parentheses mean do this first. So 6 minus 3 is 3. Then I'm going to recopy the rest of the expression, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Because if I had 9 items and split it up among 3 people, each person would get 3. Over here, we're going to do the innermost parentheses first. So 4 plus 1 is 5. Then you're going to recopy the rest of the expression that you have there. Then you're going to do what's inside these parentheses next. 5 times 5 is 25. And then recopy what you had before it. And then 100 divided by 25. Well, if you think about 100 pennies or $1, how many quarters is in that dollar? That would be 4. Or there are 4 25s inside 100. So this expression is worth 4 when it's simplified. Next, I'm going to evaluate all exponential expressions. So after you do parentheses, the next thing in the order of operations is to take care of all the exponents. Now, exponents is not really something we're going to talk much about in 4th grade, but here's an example of what it might look like. 4 to the 2nd power, or you would call this 4 squared. That means take 4 and multiply it by itself. So you evaluate or simplify 4 squared into 4 times 4, and then you do 4 times 4 to get 16, and then you would add the 5 that you had there. So after parentheses, you would take care of any exponents. The third step in the order of operations is to multiply and or divide in order from left to right. So here's that expression that Mr. Profit and I disagreed on. So this says, check to see if there's any parentheses. There's none. Check to see if there are any exponents. There are none. So the next thing you should do would be to multiply or divide. So here, working left to right. So here's my first multiplication or division problem. Actually, it's my only one. So I'm going to do that first. 5 times 2 is 10. Then you recopy whatever else you had, and then you go ahead and add. 3 plus 10 would be 13. I was right! You should have known that was going to happen. Over here, I'm going to work left to right, and I find a division problem. So I'm going to do that before I ever did this subtraction problem. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and then I recopy whatever else I haven't used, and then 20 minus 5 is 15. The last step is to add and or subtract in order from left to right. So after you have done the parentheses and the exponents, the multiplying and dividing, then you do any adding or subtracting that's left. One note is that you follow these same rules within the parentheses. So notice that I have 2 operations happening in the parentheses, in order to decide what to do first, I still follow the order of operations inside this. So the order of operations says that the division is going to come before subtraction. So I'm going to first start within the parentheses and then start here because multiplication and division comes first. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then I'm going to recopy everything else that I haven't used yet. Then I still have to do inside the parentheses first. So 7 minus 3 is 4. Recopy everything else, and then 5 plus 4 is 9. So you might be thinking that that's a lot of steps to remember. Well, if you think of a mnemonic device, something to help you remember it, it's really not that bad. So 2 ways that you can remember the order of operations. One, you can turn them into a word, a nonsense word that we can say and spell out. So PEMDAS can help you remember the steps. First is parentheses, then E for exponents, M for multiplication, D for division, A for addition, and S for subtraction. If it's hard for you to remember that word, then maybe this mnemonic device will help. This is what I learned when I was in 4th or 5th grade. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And each of the first letters of those words corresponds to these operations. I want you to watch out for a common mistake that 4th graders make. 4th graders start to think about that mnemonic device, PEMDAS, P-E-M-D-A-S, and they get stuck on the fact that the multiplication comes before the division. Well, I want you to remember that multiplication and division work together. They're partners. And whichever one of those comes first when you read left to right, you have to do first. Same with addition and subtraction. They work together. So whichever one you get to first, whether it's addition or subtraction going across, you have to do first. So looking at this one, lots of 4th graders would think P-E-M-D-A-S. Well, I see addition before subtraction, and they would want to do this operation first. But these guys are buddies, they're partners, they work together. So if we have no parentheses, we have no exponents, we have no multiplication and division, then we look for addition and subtraction going this way. So the first thing that we get to is subtraction. We do that one first. 20 minus 13 is 7. Then I recopy the problem. 7 plus 7 is 14. The multiplication and division work the same way. No parentheses, no exponents. Now I look for either one of these at the same time. And as I go across, I got to a division sign first, so I have to do that division problem first. 36 divided by 6 would be 6. I recopy the 9. 6 times 9 is 54. So let's put all of that together to evaluate 2 expressions. Evaluate this expression means to simplify it or go through all of the steps of the order of operations. So I'm going to think about, do I have any parentheses? No. Do I have any exponents? No. Now I'm looking for multiplication and division, either one going left to right. Oh, I already got to one, the very first operation. So 2 times 8 is 16. Then I recopy everything else that's there. Now I'm going to look for more multiplication or division. There's 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. Recopy, and the only thing left to do is 16 minus 1 is 15. Finally, which operation should be performed first? That's a common question you might see to assess what you know about the order of operations. And so looking at this equation, I would think about parentheses. Well, I do have this is not an equation. This expression has no equal sign. I would look for parentheses. Well, here I am. I have lots of things in the parentheses. Now I need to still follow the order of operations to see what's next. So parentheses, exponents. See, the exponents are on the outside of the parentheses, so I'm saving that for after I solve what's in here. Parentheses, exponents, then multiplication or division. So working across inside the parentheses, this dot right here is another way to do multiplication. So this would be the place that I would start in this expression. So the answer to this question would be 8 times 3. That would be the first operation that I would do. If you want to have a challenge, I would challenge you to continue simplifying this expression to find out what its value is. Remember that this is multiplying. Remember that 2 to the 4th power means take 4 2's and multiply them together. Good luck.